So the Detroit Pistons are one of those teams who no one really talks about. This is mainly because they've arguably been the most mediocre franchise over the last decade, as they've never been really good in the last 10 years, and for the most part they've just been a bad team. But honestly, I feel like good things are coming to Detroit sooner than you think. And I think they have one of the most underrated futures in the league. And that has led me to make this video where I'll just be discussing the Detroit Pistons future, discussing their young core, future assets, things like that. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want us to go over 3,000 subscribers, also drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. Talk about the Detroit Pistons having a bright future, you always have to bring up their young core, which in my opinion is definitely one of the most underrated young cores in the league. I'm not going to say they're on the level of a young core like the Grizzlies, Hawks, or Suns, simply because of the fact that their young core hasn't shown the ability to win games at all, and a lot of their young guys are still questionable to how good they will be. But they do have a lot of young talent on this roster, and by far the most intriguing young guy on the team has to be Cade Cunningham, who they drafted #1 overall in last year's draft. Cade has been a guy who I think can generally be a superstar in this league. He started his rookie season off really slow. People were really dissing him, but as of late, he's been going absolutely crazy. He's probably been the best rookie as of late. In the 8 games since the All-Star break, he's been averaging 21 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, also shooting 45% from the field. And he's just going in the upwards direction. He's a guy who I think can really be a good player, and he's a guy who I think can just do everything on the court. Definitely going to be one of the better passers in the league. I don't know if he's going to be like a James Harden, Russell Westbrook guy averaging 10 or 11 assists, but I can easily see this guy averaging 6 to 8 assists. He's also one of the best rebounding guards in the league just due to his height already, and he's shown a lot of potential on the defensive side of the floor, and he can be very versatile. His jump shot has also shown some signs of life. He's obviously not a great shooter right now, but he's shown the ability to create his own shot and hit difficult shots at times. He's just really inconsistent, which is normal for any rookie. His finishing at the rim is pretty impressive, and the way he just plays is impressive. He's never slowing down, and he's never really sped up. He's kind of like Luka Doncic in that way. He's always playing at his pace. Definitely a guy who I think can be the cornerstone of your franchise. The next prospect I want to talk about on this team is Saddiq Bey, who is definitely one of the most underrated young guys in the league. He's having a somewhat impressive season. He's averaging 16 points, 5 rebounds, although on a terrible 39% from the field. But if we're being honest, the reason he's so inefficient is because this team is just so devoid of offensive talent, to the point where he just has to take difficult shots because no one else on his team besides like Cade and Jeremy Grant can create for themselves. I don't think Saddiq's gonna be this inefficient as his career goes on, but I also don't think he's gonna be an all-star because I just don't see that in him. But I can see him being a really good role player, a really good 3-and-D player who can occasionally go off the dribble, and that's perfect for today's NBA. Having a 3-and-D guy is like one of the most important things, and the fact that they already have a young guy who fits that role is definitely huge. They also have Isaiah Stewart, who again is not a guy who I'm predicting to be a future all-star or anything, but I think can be a really solid role player for him. Already in his second season, he's shown to be a really good defensive center who just does everything you want out of a center. Solid on defense, really good rebounder. He's really strong in the post, which makes up for his lack of height, because I don't know if he's a future starter center in the league just due to the fact that he's not that tall, and it's not like he's the fastest 6'8" guy in the world, and he's not like crazy athletic with his bounce, but he definitely could be a really good backup center in the league, and that's always something you could have. But maybe I shouldn't sleep on him. He's only 20 years old. He could improve even more. At the NBA trade deadline, they traded for Marvin Bagley, and yes, I know Bagley's been in the league for so long. Most people have probably given up on him, but honestly, I don't really care what people say. I have not given up on Marvin Bagley. I still think he's a guy who could be a really good starter in the NBA, and I still think he has all-star potential. I think he was just in Sacramento, which is a terrible organization. It's rare for players to excel in Sacramento, Sacramento, just a toxic environment, and I think there was just too much bad energy there. Also, he just couldn't stay healthy and actually play for Sacramento. But honestly, in a new place in Detroit, which is better than Sacramento, everywhere's better than Sacramento, I feel like he could reach his full potential and be a really good NBA player, because he's a really skilled big man who's great at catching lobs, who has solid post moves. He's great at finishing at the rim. He can occasionally shoot, not really well at all, but maybe you just hope he's in like a cold shoot, but at least he has the confidence, I guess. If we're being honest, I really think he could be really good. He just has to improve his defense, because that's terrible. But I'm not ready to give up on Marvin Bagley. Next, we got to talk about Hamidou Diallo, who definitely has been one of the most underrated young players in the league. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar either, but he actually has been one of the better bench players of the last 2 seasons. This year he's averaging 11 points and 5 rebounds in only 22 minutes a game, and he's been playing basically every game this season. He's also doing it on nearly 50% from the field. He's not really a guy who's going to shoot the ball well at all. He's just a guy who's going to play off the team's offense and just get some easy buckets. Also a really good transition player. He's also really good on defense. He's just a guy who could be a solid role player for your team, and he's only 23 years old, so maybe he could even improve more. And the last one I want to talk about is Killian Hayes, and this is actually a negative. I don't think this guy's going to be good at this point. I think he's probably a bust in the NBA. I'm not going to lie, the first time I talked about the Pistons was probably a year ago. I said that I thought Killian, because he still had potential, and I didn't think people should have given up on him so quickly, but the way he's just been this bad so far in the league, it doesn't really look like he's going to improve at all. I'm not going to call him a bust right now, because you have to give a player at least 3 or 4 years before you call him that. But I'm just saying, if I had to predict to save my life, I would predict that he's a bust going forward. But I don't know. He was picked high for a reason, so maybe he'll improve. But all I'm saying is, I don't really think he's going to be a good player in the NBA. And I think the Pistons missed out on this pick. As we know, the Detroit Pistons have been one of the worst teams in the league this season, and now at the making of this video, they have the 3rd worst record in the league, and honestly, I don't see them winning any more games. And if you're aware of the NBA changes, the draft odds, now, if you're one of the 3 worst teams, the top 3 worst teams in the league, they all have the same chance to get the number 1 pick, meaning the Pistons, even though they only have the 3rd worst record in the league, still have just as high of a chance as anyone to get the number 1 pick again. And as I said, that's just huge, because if they get the number 1 pick, they can select one of the top prospects like Chet Hologram, Paolo Banchero, or Jabari Smith. And at least one of those guys should be an all-star in the future, maybe even a superstar. That would definitely be a huge boost to their future. And I think this draft is really important, because I think the Pistons should try and look to be a team that can at least make the play-in tournament next season and be competitive. But if they miss out on this draft pick, I'm not going to lie, they're going to have to try and draft someone else good. So this draft is really important for them. And you don't want to just be one of the worst teams in the league every season. That's going to build losing habits for your roster. But regardless, the Pistons will have a high pick in this year's draft, and I think the guy they select is going to be a good player. At least I'm being hopeful. But to conclude the video, I'm not acting like the Pistons are a future dynasty or something like that. I just feel like there's a lot of young talent on this team that is really underappreciated. I'm not going to lie, they need more prospects who can actually be stars in the league, because outside of Cade Cunningham, I don't see anyone else on this team becoming an all-star level player. But I think in this year's draft, they could select someone with the type of potential, which could be huge. If they could just get a bunch of prospects who have really high potential. They already have a lot of really good young role players on their team. This team could be really good, especially with their depth and stuff. They just add better veterans alongside too. This Pistons team has an underratedly good future. I think they could be somewhat, not exactly, but somewhat like the Memphis Grizzlies, where they have Cade Cunningham, their star point guard, the same way the Grizzlies have John Morant. Then they just have a bunch of really good role players, because the Grizzlies don't really have an all-star outside of John Morant. Their second best player is probably Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane. Those guys aren't all-stars. So the Grizzlies have shown you could win games without having multiple all-stars on your team. Just have some really good role players, and I feel like the Pistons should somewhat follow that formula, because they have the roster to do so. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Pistons have a bright future. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, when this will go 3,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video because I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro.